Half of the review packet solution video for cumulative test number 5. So this is not the entire test, this is just the newest material and the things that were not on the last cumulative test. So you'll have some questions from your old test and some questions from these. Since you weren't tested on any of these yet on the cumulative test, we decided to give you some more options here, so you have 5 of each topic to work on. You can decide how much you need to work on and what you think you need help with. Alright, so let's start with these first set, which is on writing or identifying a linear equation. So this one says a line passes through the point 1, 2 and has a slope of 6. Okay, what we were just working on was how to find in a linear equation one of these y equals mx plus b like equations when all you had was a pair of points, and the first process of that was to figure out what the slope was. Well, this is actually an easier problem because the slope is given to you directly right here, so you actually don't have to worry about finding the slope, you already know what it is. And because if you know how to write a linear equation, your answer is going to be y equals 6x plus or minus something on the end here. Your slope is definitely positive 6. So when you look at these problems over here, these answers I mean, you can actually eliminate A and C because they had negative 6 as the slope, so they're definitely incorrect. So we're actually already down to B or D as possible answers. So even if you were taking the keystone, at this point that is an educated guess on which one it is, and then you could at least have a 50-50 chance. It's better than 1 out of 4. Anyway, but let's talk about how you actually figure out what the y-intercept is then, so we'll know exactly what our answer is. Alright, just like when you were doing the 2 points problem, you want to start with the generic equation y equals mx plus b, and the goal is to find b, which means you need to know a value for y, m, and x. And you actually do, because this point right here can be your example x and y. So the 1 can go in for x, the 2 for y, and the 6 is the m, or the slope. So I'm just going to write 2 equals 6 times 1 plus b. 2 equals 6 plus b. And I'm going to subtract 6 from both sides, and I get 2 minus 6 is negative 4. b is negative 4, which means when we go over here and write it in our final equation, the y-intercept is minus 4. Our answer is D. Alright, so let's go to number 2. Number 2 is actually even easier yet. Here again we have a slope of 5 over 2, which means we can eliminate D because the number next to x is the slope. So D is not a slope of 10. It's supposed to be a slope of 5 over 2. So then it says, and it crosses the y-axis at 10. Well, the point that crosses the y-axis is the y-intercept. So what they just said was the y-intercept is 10. They actually just told it to you. So if you write your equation, the slope goes next to x and the y-intercept goes on the end. You want the equation that matches that one, which is C. Okay, so then we get to number 3, which is the most difficult type. This is the type we've been working on most recently, where you're trying to write an equation like the ones we have been writing, but you don't have a slope or a y-intercept. You have just a pair of points. So we're going to start by saying that we know we're going to write the equation where we need a number next to x and we need a number at the end. The first thing we need to find is the slope, the number that goes next to x. That formula is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So all this is x1, y1, x2, y2. And we take 21 minus, okay, y1 is negative 3. And then on the bottom it's negative 6 minus 3. So 21 minus negative really means plus, so this is actually 24, and negative 6 minus 3 is negative 9. If I reduce that, it's going to be a negative, and 3 goes into each one, 8 times on the top and 3 on the bottom. So in the end, my slope is negative 8 over 3. So I can go over here and look and see that I can eliminate a and b because those are positive 8 over 3 and our slope is supposed to be negative. Alright, so now I still need to figure out what this one is, and just like number 1, I'm going to go back and use the generic equation, but I'm going to substitute in a y, an m, and an x so that I can find b. So I use my first coordinate point over here, 3, negative 3, as x and y. So y will be negative 3 from that first point, m is the negative 8 over 3 I just calculated, and x is 3, also from the first point. And then b is the only thing missing. So what happens is, when you take negative 8 times 3, you get negative 24, and divide it by 3, you get negative 8. So this is b, negative 8 plus b. And all I want to do now is add that 8 away, and I get b equals 5. So my final answer is a plus 5 on the end. Negative 8 over 3x plus 5, it's C. Now that one takes the most work out of all of them, but that's because you're not given anything other than just a pair of points. But see, this is what we've been working on in class. We've actually been working on the hardest ones. So some of the keystone ones they give you are actually a lot easier than some of these things we've been doing in class. Alright, let's go to the last one. Here we have a line with a slope of 3 over 2 passes through negative 1, negative 5. So we do have a slope, okay, and that's a good thing. So it means we have a little less work to do, and we have an example x and y, so we can find our b very quickly. But this one gives a little bit of a curveball. It says write the equation of the line in general form. So general form means x and y are together. So instead of writing y equals mx plus b, that's slope-intercept form, where the y is on one side and the x is on the other side of the equal sign. We're going to write an equation where they are together. The thing is I need to write it in the way I know how, which is much like the one we wrote right here. But I'm just going to, then at the last point, I'm going to move the x over to the other side. You'll see what I mean. So what I'm saying is I'll start with a generic equation, and I'll put negative 5 for y, the 3 over 2 is m, and x is negative 1. And I still have b on the end. So what happens here is negative 5, okay, equals 3 over 2 times negative 1 is negative 3 over 2 plus b. And I'm going to add 3 over 2 to both sides then, so that this cancels. Okay, so negative 5 plus 3 over 2, or plus 1.5, is going to be negative 3.5 plus b, or equals b. Sorry, equals b. So what happens is my equation is going to be y equals y equals 3 over 2x minus 3.5. Okay, so if you look at C, right, that's exactly what we have, because 7 over 2 is negative 3.5. But that's not general form. So C is actually the same exact equation, but it's in the wrong standard format. So what they want us to do is bring the x term over. So I'm going to bring the x over by subtracting 3 over 2x from both sides. So I'm going to get negative 3 over 2x plus y equals negative 3.5. So the question is here's the equation with x and y together, and then I look at the other two. It's not these two because they're not general form. I look at these two and I say, well, which one of these is it? As it turns out, none of them are exactly the same. But if you look at the top one, if you were to multiply this thing by negative 2, negative 2 times the whole thing, it would be positive 3x minus 2y equals positive 7. So A is your correct answer. That is such a pain of a problem to do, and I think it kind of reflects the idea that usually people use slope-intercept form and not the general one. So maybe, if anything else, it's a lesson in why you would want to use this one rather than all of this extra work to write it in that general format. Okay, let's go on to number 5. Okay, number 5, they're back to taking it easy on you again. It says, what is the slope of the line that passes through those points? So remember, when you're doing an equation, you don't even have to write the whole equation here, right? All they ask you for is, what is the slope? Well, when you have 2 points, I mean, doing the slope should be a real easy thing. x1, y1, x2, y2. And then we just do our normal formula for slope. This time we don't even have to work out the whole equation. We just got to work out the slope. So it's 12 minus negative 3 and 7 minus 1. 12 minus negative 3 is 12 plus 3, that's 15. 7 minus 1 is 6. So I got 15 over 6. If I reduce it, 3 goes into the top 5 times and into the bottom twice. 5 over 2, d. So after all the work that we did on number 4, imagine if you could get 1, 2, 3, and 5 correct. 4 out of 5 would be awful good and certainly be enough to be proficient. So even if you couldn't get number 4, 1 through 3 and 5 would be awesome. Okay, so let's look at number 6. This is a different thing. These are linear equations where you might have to solve them or you might have to write one. We'll see. So it says Catherine paid $131.44 for an MP3 player. If the price includes a 6% sales tax, so that's included in that dollar amount, which of the following equations can be used to determine the price of the MP3 player before tax? Okay, and then it says X is the cost of the MP3 player and Y represents the total cost including the tax. Well, it's important to understand what a 6% sales tax means. What that means is that you pay 6 cents for every dollar in tax, which means that if something costs $1, then really you pay $1.06 for it. So maybe we should write that down. Something costs $1, you really pay $1.06 because of the tax. So essentially, like, instead of saying, well, take the amount you pay and multiply it by 1, that would be how much it actually costs. If you want to know how much you really pay, the total would be $1.06 times whatever you paid, 1.06. It's this one. The one above it would be if tax was 60%. Luckily, it's only 6%. Alright, let's look at number 7. This one's going back to, can you just solve an equation? Relatively easy one. Distribute the 7. 7x minus 28 equals negative 2x plus 35. Alright, no like terms that combine on either side, so we start moving stuff around. Add the 2x to both sides to cancel that. 9x minus 28 equals 35. Add the 28. 9x equals 63. Divide by 9. X equals 7. Sorry about that. Okay, let's look at number 8. It says the cost of a long distance telephone call is given by the function, and then it shows you the function. M is the length of the call in minutes. This is number of minutes. Determine how long a phone call can be made for $7.20. So maybe you think about it, the cost, this is the cost based on the number of minutes. So basically what we're saying is the cost is 0.15 times the number of minutes plus 1.2. It says how long can a phone call be made for $7.20? Okay, this is the cost. So instead of writing the variable for cost, I'll write 720 equals 0.15 m plus 1.2. Now I got to solve it for m. I'm going to subtract the 1.2. I get 6 equals 0.15 m. Then I'm going to divide by 0.15. So that cancels. I'm going to get a value for m. That's probably calculator worthy. So 6 divided by 0.15 is 40. So this was a 40-minute phone call. The key understanding in this problem was that they wanted you to recognize that the $7.20 doesn't go in for M, it goes in for where the C would be, the total cost on the outside. M is the number of minutes, so why would I stick $7.20 for the number of minutes? I want to stick $7.20 where the cost of the phone call is. Okay, looking at number 9, probably a little bit more standard linear equation word problem. You're going to get a lot of these. It says Erica went shopping for new clothes for school. She bought a pair of jeans for $48.60 and several shirts for $8.81 each. If X represents the number of shirts, which of the following equations should be used to find Y, the total cost? Okay, so basically what we're saying is that she pays the $48.60 one time, and then the $8.81 for each shirt, which means she pays that multiple times. So you always have to ask yourself which one gets the variable and which one doesn't. The one that you pay once does not get a variable. The one that you pay each time does get a variable. So the $8.81 is the one that gets the variable, and the $48.60 does not. So if we look at A and B, they can be eliminated because the $48.60 does not get a variable. It also says that Y is the total cost, and it's X number of shirts. So you'd be taking $8.81 times X, the number of shirts. So of these two then, it's this one, which fits our normal equation, right? Normally we have Y equals mx plus b, right? In this case, you don't want to change anything up about that. The $8.81 gets the variable, it gets the X. Alright, let's look at number 10. Thinking it's probably the same idea, a little bit harder. It says Leanne leaves town traveling at an average speed of 45 miles per hour. After 2 hours, Bart leaves town traveling in the same direction at an average speed of 70 miles per hour. So he's going faster than she is. Which of the following equations could be used to represent the distance between Leanne and Bart after X hours? So it says let X represent the time and hours that Bart has been traveling, and let Y represent the distance between them. Okay, so if you think about it, you read through the problem for a minute, okay, she goes 45 miles per hour, and Bart doesn't even leave until 2 hours after she does. How far away, the first thing you got to think about is how far away are they when they start out? Well, 45 miles per hour is how fast she was going, and she did it for 2 hours, which means she went 90 miles. So when they start, they are 90 miles apart. And then what's going to happen is Bart is going to go 70 miles an hour while she's only going 25 or going 45. So Bart is going to catch up, right? 70 miles an hour for Bart and 45 for Leanne. Okay, well the thing is since he's going faster, he's going to get closer to her, right? So their distance is going to get closer. The question is by how much? If you notice, there's a 25 mile per hour difference. That means Bart is going to catch up (25 miles each hour). So we got to put that into the context of an equation. Keep in mind that Y is the distance they are apart. So that is going to go down, right? So it's going to start at 90, but it's going to go down. The distance they are apart is going to go down every hour. So they start at 90, so this one doesn't say anything about starting at 90, so we're out of that. Okay, these two, or these three, excuse me, say start at 90. This one says lose 25 miles every hour of distance between them. This one says gain 25 miles of distance between them. We know they're not gaining distance. It's not that. And this one says you're going to lose 70 miles every hour. Well, if you think about it, what we said over here, right? Bart is going to catch up 25 miles each hour. That means he's going to get closer by 25 miles. That means the distance they are apart is going to shrink by 25 miles every hour. It's this one. That's a pretty tough question, guys. But, I mean, again, it can be done. Just got to think about it a little bit. All right, let's go to linear inequalities. You guys did really well on the quiz on linear inequalities, but then when it came to the study island benchmark, I think maybe you forgot a little bit of this. So let's see where we're at here. Okay, we have an OR setup inequality, but you never know. We might have to do something different, so let's take a look at it. All right, we're going to solve these problems as if they were separate problems entirely. Okay, this first one, add 8 to both sides. 4x greater than negative 16. Divide by 4. X is greater than negative 4. Okay, or bring it down. Here, I'm going to divide by negative 2 on both sides. Keep in mind, when you divide by a negative, you have to flip the symbol around. So what I end up getting is x is greater than negative 4, or x can be greater than or equal to greater than or equal to 6. So the thing is like, since it's an or, right, it means it can be either one of those things and it would be okay. So if we look at this, right, greater than negative 4, that's what this D is graphed at, right? Like, see, A says less than negative 4. A is no good. Right? If we have greater than negative 4, that means open circle and shade to the right. But greater than or equal to negative 6 would mean closed circle and also shade to the right. This one doesn't shade to the right, so that's no good. This one leaves off the whole negative 4 part. That's no good. So since it's an OR problem, what we're saying is that it can shade greater than negative 4 and over, or also 6 and over here. Like, it's including the part that we also shade in it in that whole picture. So it's D. That last one was tough because you're used to seeing ORs go off in opposite directions, and then they turn around and give you one that's like a special case scenario where the answers both go in the same direction. So maybe sometimes the easiest thing to do is to look at the lowest number and say that if they're both going off in the same direction, it's got to start with that one and go over. Number 12 leaves you with just the inequality itself, and you have to solve it. So when we look at that one, again, we'll solve them as separate problems. And it looks like, again, they have that thing where you have to flip the inequality, so we want to watch how we do the final answer. I'm going to add 1 here. 5x is greater than negative 20. And I'm going to divide by 5. X is greater than negative 4. Or, okay, here I'm going to divide by negative 2, but that's going to cause me to flip the symbol around again. So I'm going to get x is greater than or equal to 5. Okay, so I look at C, right, the first one I think because it has an or in it, right? It's supposed to be greater than negative 4, not less than. So C is actually out. Okay, when the x is in between, that means one is going, they're going in opposite directions. In this case, they're both greater thans, so it's not D. So the only question is it A or is it B? Okay, keep in mind that if you were to do the shading, right, think about what you would color in on this number line. Here's the 5. You would close circle it and shade everything to the right. Here's the negative 4. Open circle, but otherwise shade everything to the right. Do you see how I'm just shading over the stuff that I already did shade? That means that x is greater than negative 4 takes care of everything that had to do with x is greater than or equal to 5. In other words, any number greater than -4 is automatically going to be, part of that is going to be eaten up by the greater than or equal to -5 part. So anything that's greater than or equal to -5 is automatically greater than -4 also. So our answer to this is that this is the broadest category that works. So it's going to be A. Again, those are a little bit tough because they're incorporating a little bit of a variation in the problems that you often don't see. Almost done. We have 3 more of these inequality things and we're done with this video. It says, which of the following number lines shows the solution to the compound inequality given below? So here again, looking for the solution to this inequality. Alright, then the first one, I'm going to write things over here so I can solve them and work out these solutions. Okay, I'm going to subtract 5, -4x less than 32. Then I'm going to divide by -4. Once again, that's going to cause me to have to flip the symbol around. 32 divided by -4 is -8. So it's actually greater than -8. And on this side, I'm going to add 2. 4x less than or equal to 8. I'm going to divide by 4, and I get x is less than or equal to just 2. Alright, this one's going to work how they're supposed to. So what this says is our answer is going to be in between. It's got to be greater than -8 and less than 2. In between -8 and 2. So I look over here and I see, where is the shading that tells me in between -8 and 2? Well, it's B or C, but A and D are definitely out. So the question is it B or is it C? This means open circle on -8, closed on 2. It's C. Number 14, same concept. Presented a little bit differently, but it is the same idea. Everything that we do in the middle, we're going to do to both parts. So I'm going to subtract 5. That's 6 less than or equal to -3x less than or equal to 30. And then I'm going to divide by -3 on all 3 sides, and I'm going to have to flip every inequality. So what I have is, we're saying that it's greater than, it's going to be between -2 and -10, which is D. Excuse me for 1 second. Okay, last one. So once again, we're solving a compound inequality, and we're going to separate it into 2 separate problems. So I'm going to subtract 8 from both sides of this one. That's -5x less than 45. And then I'm going to divide both sides by -5. And that's going to cause, again, the symbol to flip around and us to have -9. So part of it is greater than -9. The other side, I'm going to add 2. 5x less than or equal to 15. And I'm going to divide by 5. X is less than or equal to 3. So what I'm saying is that it's going to be greater than -9 and less than or equal to 3. So it's between -9 and 3. We just got to make sure we write the answer to both of them. Okay, so it's not -10, that's out, and this is out also. So it's -9 and 3. The question is which one? Alright, this one says greater than -9. Okay, that's what it's supposed to be. C says less than -9, so it's not C. If you think about it, x is greater than -9 and less than or equal to 3. It's B. that's the first half of the review. I'm going to stop the video there and